Hello, welcome to David Eames On Your Mind, a conversation between friends about mental health issues. Hello, and welcome to the David Eames On Your Mind podcast. As always, I'm joined by the lovely Mikey Markham, but alas, Owen Oxley can't be with us today. I think he's emigrated, or he's working somewhere else, I'm not sure which. So, in a bit of a change from the usual thing, we're not doing a subject specifically today, except for the subject is Mikey Markham.
Hello, I am the subject.
Yeah. So, Mikey, you were saying to me outside of here that you've been going through it a bit recently. Life's been a bit tough. Do you want to talk about how you feel?
Yeah, mate, I'm down. I can always go into that, talk about the whirlwinds. Mate, it's everything actually, but really started off with business. As you know, before Christmas we were already struggling with business, and then suddenly I made some drastic decisions. We're like, right, need to just move it, get across. For those that don't know, we've got buses on a farm. And we do community projects. That's what the business is. It's a creative hub.
Static buses, aren't they? They're not...
They move. They can if they want to.
Yeah.
This one does.
Yeah.
But yeah, they are static, and they're all sort of converted to be creative spaces. And big uproar with the family. Had struggles there. And then ended up getting this other bit of land to work with through a charity who had heard of everything we've been doing, really liked it, and they've been struggling a bit. Fast forward all that, we actually got okay with the farm again, which is fantastic news, but that meant we'd ended up with 2 spaces, and we couldn't really afford both spaces, but we saw a lot of potential for what could be. But it has just, through so many things, we don't have to get too businessy today, but for so many reasons, it had just been accumulating in pressure and stress and pressure and stress. To add on to that, and with that, had a baby. So got a 1-month-old, got a puppy, and my whole life just had become business and family, which is lovely, but it wasn't like enjoying the family and being together and sharing beautiful moments. It was more of stress related.
Yeah, wherever you were waiting for the next place you needed to be, kind of thing.
1,000,000%. Yeah, I just need get into the next, and just trying to quality control and manage everything. So it's been really difficult. I've got other jobs as well, videography, trying to get them edits in. People then getting angry at me because they were behind, no signal in my house and stuff like that. Yeah. It's been constant. It's been really difficult. Yeah. And no breathing space between all that. So you can dissect or sift through all of that. There's a lot in there as well.
Yeah. And what do you think your reaction to this was? What were the primary emotions that you were feeling under all this pressure?
Just overwhelming and all-consuming. So frustrated and angry at myself for letting it get to this point. And just, spite, I suppose, the whole situation and where we're at. Not angry at myself for making baby with Chrissy. Happy with that dynamic. But maybe to a little extent thinking, we should have known what we were getting into here, and we're not equipped or prepared for it. There are some truths there. So, overwhelm. Overwhelm is my biggest.
And I don't know whether it's appropriate for me to talk about this, but it felt there was a bit of a tipping point where one of your buses was vandalised.
Yeah, so we've done a lot of work with some really hard to reach kids that have been kicked out of mainstream education from multiple schools. And then this one day, we get up to the new space where we've got this other bus, and there was already a bit of resentment at this space because conversations have been accumulating on when are we going to get our rent, when we're going to get this, when we'd already put, let's be honest, about 20 grand into the whole space. I don't mind about finances. And then we just bought this bus. And And then we turned up on a Wednesday, but after some investigation, the incident happened on the Saturday, and we've just found about it on our own accord. But everyone knew about it too. So we get there and we think, oh my God, is it kids from the sessions? Is it kids that we've had to give a red card to on one of the sessions? And everything's running around my head. Yeah. What transpires is it was young kids, like under sevens of a football team, but the parents were watching them do it.
Incredible.
Which you can't quite believe. So yeah, then there was a lot of anger sort of really ruminating inside, and I just couldn't believe what I was experiencing, and the fact that everybody knew about it kind of really added to the wound.
Do you think that anger that you were feeling then was actually a build-up of all the other stuff that had been going on, the pressure over a period of months, and that almost sort of took the lid off it?
Completely. Yeah, it all built, and that was a tipping point for me, definitely. I just felt so hard done by. I felt we're really trying. We're doing everything we can. We love doing this. It is given to our community. Yeah, there's an element of we're getting funded now and we're getting paid for something we love, but it feels more than that, and it's really emotive because all the money I'm getting from my videography and other spaces, and Chrissy's had some money in recently, has all gone into this, all there. And it just felt we'd been lied to a little bit as well. You know, this is going to be much more safe for you. You're going to have it there. You're going to have some stability and all that. And it only took a month for it to get vandalised and wrecked. And we just thought, what have we done? Where are we at now?
Yeah. So it was
very emotive.
Regret about your own choices, and then a sense of betrayal.
Yes, complete. That's 100%. Not thought of the betrayal before, but that is. Sometimes it helps, doesn't it? Do you know when you have a word or just something said to you, and it can alleviate something a little because you go, oh, that was what I was trying to say, or that's what I was feeling. Yeah. And betrayal is definitely in there.
Yeah, because I mean, I think sort of a general point. I think the process of counselling is often about helping people to frame their thoughts up, to express them, and offering a word sometimes can be really helpful.
Well, that's the one I'm going to be repeating to everybody else. It was betrayal. It was.
And also, sort of, as a general point, from a therapeutic point of view, it helps people to feel that they're being listened to.
And understanding. I hear where you're coming from. Was it this? And you go, that's the thing. Yeah, that's beautiful.
Yeah. So you then went into fight response, really, didn't you?
Yeah, I mean, happy to go into that.
Cutting and slashing around you with a huge sword.
Metaphorically with my fingers.
Indeed.
If my finger's the sword,
keyboard warrior.
I became that, definitely. It's part of my DNA, I think. It's part of my response. We've been through a bit of that on the podcast before, but bullying. Feeling bullied from adults, parents, school teachers, and then often kids. It was my granddad that kind of taught me it, but he just said, you know what, get your fist as tight as you can and plonk it on their nose. And unfortunately for me, that ended up working. When I was at school, it stopped people unleashing on me. So I think I've always had that equipped, and that's a part of my toolbox. Is if I'm too far backed into a corner, I just feel everything's all compiling. Go, let them have you, kind of thing, and let them know where you're at, because I've seen it displayed in my mum as well, and it works to an extent. It's not a nice feeling you're left with, and I nearly had a bit of a panic attack while I was typing stuff. More of an anger attack. I don't know if that's a thing, but cortisol.
It's the adrenaline flowing through
your
system.
Mate, I've not felt that for a long time, but when I felt that element of betrayal or not being listened to, or everything felt very blasé and flippant. Oh, just get them to pay for it. Oh, just write that up. Mikey, just pay for CCTV. Just get this. Nobody really felt like they understood that it was another job for me to go and source, pay for out of our own pocket and stuff. And I was just up to here with it.
Yeah.
And for those that are just listening, that was above my head.
Yeah.
But I'd gone at that moment, and I thought, right, I need to be heard here, because I don't feel I'm being understood and heard, and that's one of my weaknesses and
Well, I think
trigger
I
points.
think that's the thing for all humans. You know, we are communicating animals. Perhaps the one thing that differentiates us more from other species, from other primates, is that we have language and can communicate. And when we feel that we're not being heard, and I think whether that's on a societal level or individual level, that's what really triggers it often into a very aggressive response. You know, when people are giving you the old talk to the hand business, it's a real wind up.
Yeah.
And here, who are you? You know, who are you talking to? Because you feel like you've been betrayed by the community in a way, that what you've been trying to do for people is not being respected.
Yeah.
And they've let you down. And what is it all for? Almost your sense of meaning slips away. Does that feel like it?
Completely. Yeah. And not to put any people in it or mention any names, but knowing that clubs from Ripley were a part of it and not taking any ownership and not offering anything. And it was handled in... I was just putting in our director's chat how it was being handled. But to see the way that certain clubs were dealing with it and giving young people information of others, I just thought, what is this? And why is nobody been in touch with me? Nobody just spoke and said, this is what we believe to have happened. Here's how we can rectify it. Let's go from here.
Yeah.
It was all just left...
Yeah.
unsaid.
Which gives you fear for the future as well. Okay, if you repair this damage, well, what's going to happen next week?
Yeah, 1,000,000%.
And because you're here on the farm, you're a bit away from things. That there's a degree of protection that comes from that, something that's more in the community.
And also respect up here. We've spent so long on it and worked tirelessly with young people that probably don't get that at school and don't even have it at home sometimes, that I'm so glad to some degree it had nothing to do. It wasn't an attack on the bus from something we'd done. It was just a mindless act through boredom or whatever.
Yeah.
And when we found out that was something that alleviated a lot of my neurosis and worry and concern. So yeah, up here, I still feel this sense of what we're offering and what we're giving is understood and it is being respected, and we've never had anything like that happen before. So that, in a bittersweet way, that was something to soften the blow.
Yeah. And can you maybe view it in some ways as a measure of the need in the community that you're seeking to serve?
I think it was you that actually said that to me. But it did help me reframe. It did help me consider differently the way that I was attacking it. I very much needed a couple of days to unwind and take a minute away from it. But that was one thing that I considered and I thought about differently after was, well, yeah, even though there was parents looking on and seeing what was happening and there was loads of them doing it, that just talks about how ingrained and conditioned that is in the mindsets. And if all I think is throw your toys out the pram, then nothing gets changed and resolved in that. But if it could be a learned experience for people involved, then maybe that's something we can take away from that. Yeah.
Do you feel that you've learned anything from the experience?
It'll be one in time. I am.
Well, reflect now, just for a moment.
I'll do some reflect.
Are there some lessons for you in it?
Yeah, so I think it's very raw, and we were on BBC again, well, what we do every Thursday, guys. Make sure you check that out.
Radio Nottingham.
Radio Nottingham. But we were on the radio yesterday discussing it, weren't we? And just at the minute, everything that I'm doing, the business, other endeavours that I do, I'm just not feeling enjoyment and colour in what I'm doing again. So it definitely took some steam out the train. And I'm not thinking things maybe rationally or how I would a better state. So from that we spoke about again on the radio yesterday, that I had a better day yesterday, and I had a bit more time to sit and think with it. I suppose.
Why did you have a better day yesterday? What made it feel better?
And this is some of the lessons, is I just broke the dance. I got out of the mould of, right, I need to get into pilot mode now, get things done, finish that edit, do that thing, take Ella to school, get back to business. And the other day, we took some time out and we went for a walk in the woods with the dog and Ella, and just back into nature a little bit, trying not to think of things and being mindful.
Yeah.
But then as thoughts would come in, I was at a bit better standing point to look at them and think about them from. So it did. It took. It replenished energy. Give me a bit of time away. I've come back and I've sat about with it, and I thought, yeah, okay. How can you reframe? How can you look at things in different ways? Maybe an element of to reflect that attacking helped in a certain way. I could do it in different ways, but I think it made it all known. Everything was transparent then. This is where I'm at. This is how I stand. And then you can sift through that and work with somebody, like we've had conversations about it, and take all that information again and sit and think about it in a different light. So that was something that I wouldn't often do, and I'd let it fester. But being more transparent, taking that time out to just enjoy something, be with a family. It's hard to stay in a mindset, isn't it, when you're watching your dog run around and bite your kid in a nice way, and then you're seeing a belly laughing, and she's grabbing him back and tussling with him. It's just a beautiful moment.
Nowhere better to be, right there.
There really wasn't. And then I sat there thinking, life has got meaning, life has got purpose. There is something that I've got to live for here.
So do you think there can be a tendency that when you've been hurt, to kind of cherish those feelings of hurt and anger, and you almost want to feed the fire of your anger, and your thought processes keep pushing you down that road, because there's a weird kind of safety about it. You know where you are if you're just punching out at the world all the time. But it's not constructive, is it? It can serve some purpose, as we said before, and we did a piece on anger, that it can be a good motivator for us. But if we're sticking with it, there's a danger it turns into rage, which is the destructive aspect.
What was it? You said anger's useful. Use it, don't lose it. Yeah, I think I get caught in a trap of anger then. And I just reflect to everybody that's hard doing me. And then also I'm waiting for it. So when anything comes in, I'm in a reactive moment to stop it at its source, whereas I could definitely be responsive, take it in, think about what they're trying to say and work with it, whereas I become very reactive.
Yeah, and it's I wouldn't want you to knock that as well.
Yeah,
because one of your superpowers is your passion for things, and it's hard to be passionate in a positive way and say you're never going to be passionate about something negative. I can be really passionate creatively, but then if someone's hurt me, I can be completely dispassionate and disconnected from that.
I suppose that's one thing that I'm uncertain to at the minute, and what's shaken me is that the passion side. I just don't feel passionate at the minute, and I'm really. I think an element is just comparing myself. I've seen online, all my friends have kind of normal, quote unquote, lifestyles, but within that they're going on holidays and they're booking things and doing things, and I've sacrificed an element of all that to do what we're doing. And now the resentment's built up of, when have we just sat and been at a nice country for a long time and in a different atmosphere? So there's something there of resentment, but then that's where the passion just seems to have sapped from as well.
Right. So that resentment then, that's perhaps colouring everything. That it's not necessarily the loss of passion, but it's the holding on to to that resentment.
Yeah.
The feeling that you've been badly treated, betrayed.
How do you get rid of that?
Well, this is going to sound so simplistic of working to let go of it.
Yeah.
Because again, we can cling on to it, I think. There's something kind of comforting of they all hate me, it's horrible.
I know what you're saying.
And then also the avoidant attachment kicks in then. You know, which I can characterise it coarsely as you can all just fuck off.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's part of a British way of relating to things more often than not. Some of us are more avoidant than others, but I think generally in traditional British culture there's a bit of that avoidance about pushing everyone away when we feel hurt.
I'm with you.
But it's self-destructive.
Yeah.
Because what you're doing is you're increasing that. You got that sense of isolation, push people away, and you increase your sense of isolation. So it becomes a self-feeding loop and a self-fulfilling prophecy of nobody likes me, so I'm going to make sure the fuckers don't like me.
Yeah. I think there may be elements of that in there. They're definitely, again, nuanced into the certain people. I've tried to be quite conscious and aware of it and speak to people I care about and people that I think are going to help this flourish and what we need out of it. Not turn my back to those people yet, but maybe to just certain situations that I can't process at the minute, or I don't think I'm going to bring the best point of myself across to, so I've turned away from them just for the time being.
Well, that might be, you know, part of the issue for you here, because there's something to be said for the fake it till you make it approach.
Yeah.
Is that if you've got to say some, you know, an actor on the West End stage has had some really bad news, they still need to get out and get the job done. For me, as a therapist, that if something difficult has happened in my own life, which happens on a fairly regular basis, my clients never see it because I'm controlling how I present myself. And weirdly, by controlling how I present myself, it changes how I feel. So doing the professional job of being there in that normal situation, normal for me, then it returns normality for me.
Yeah.
And it's surprising how much we can separate, you know, what we're feeling from how we're behaving. But if we're always linking our behaviour to our feelings, then how are you going to change them? So if you're feeling hurt and isolated, and then you behave as a hurt and isolated person, how's it going to change? Does that make sense?
Yeah. So there's just, you've got to make a choice then within that.
Yeah.
And attack that in a different manner.
That's right. So you don't choose how you feel. You
No.
feel as a way that your particular psyche responds to external stimuli.
Yeah.
But then you do have a choice about how you think and how you behave. So if you see your whole being as a car, where the back wheels are your physiology and your emotions, and the front wheels are your thoughts and actions, you can't control your physiology and your emotion, but where the front wheels steer, the back wheels follow.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
And sometimes it can be hard to do that. You know, you're almost forcing yourself into doing it.
Yeah.
But the more you're doing it, the more you start normalising your life, the more normal it starts to feel.
Yeah. It's more like back in the day, I've had situations with partners where you don't realise that your silent treatment or whatever it is in that second, it only takes a different way of thinking to go, it wasn't that bad.
Yeah.
Let's just say something, let it go, and then you've got a whole day in front of you, rather than a whole day wasted by playing this game in your head.
Yeah, and those games, they only hurt us.
Yeah.
I mean, when you get, this is quite common, you get two avoidant people living together, and neither of them speaking to the other. I've used the image sometimes of okay, it's like trying to push the two north poles of a magnets together.
Yeah.
And they just repel. And you turn one magnet around, and they come together. And someone will say, "Yeah, well, why has it always got to be me? Why have I always got to be making the approach?" Well, because you're the only one you've got any control over.
Yeah.
So if you're waiting for the other person to solve it all the time, it's a self-defeating strategy. And maybe in the approach of everything that you're doing, that the work you're doing, if you're isolating you from it, you're continuing your sense of isolation.
Yeah, I hear that.
And
Completely.
so it's the meaning that you find in what you do. It doesn't come from heaven. It just doesn't flow down from nowhere.
No.
It's a meaning that you've chosen to give to it. So give it to it.
Yeah.
Look for that meaning. If you're telling yourself it has no meaning and no colour, that's how it's going to feel. It becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy.
I hear you. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. There's a lot to unravel in that, isn't there? There's a lot to unpack.
Yeah.
I think it started. You know, I've had days today where I'm looking forward to sessions, and I've had to choose to look forward to that session by, who's going to be here, and how's that going to work, and can we do anything creative that will be a bit different and spice it up. We had yesterday. No, it was the day before, but we had a poet come down who is like my hero poet of all time. And he gave the most incredible session. And I could feel my mind going into those territories where it was thinking, don't enjoy this too much. Remember, you're supposed to be annoyed. And I was like, shut up, I don't need that.
Yeah.
And just got involved, and we were acting it out, and we were having different readouts here, and it was just really fun. And that gave a bit of the feeling back, and I remembered what we're doing it for. Yeah, it's just the things that have felt very hard to consider about the financial aspect, because the farm here, as in it just works, and we've got enough money to keep it running, get everyone paid, the cleaners and ourselves, which is great. It's just we've really got to be able to turn into this other avenue now and work out what the best steps forward are going to be.
Yeah. But it's the steps forward, that's the key.
Yeah.
You are where you are. There's little point in regretting you are where you are, because you may be there as a result of your own actions. It may be things beyond your control. But wishing you were somewhere else doesn't get you somewhere else.
Yeah.
It's what you're going to do next. And you may be screwed.
Yeah, definitely.
But again,
there's power in that, isn't there?
You're still alive.
Yeah.
It's the Cicero thing of dum spiro spero, while I breathe I hope.
That's how I believe to it, is that if we are screwed, if we've got to kind of just pull the plug on a certain place, then at least all the water's being emptied, and we can start afresh again.
Yeah, because you run up against something here which is called the sunk cost fallacy, which is, I've put all this into it, all this effort into it, perhaps all this money into it. I can't back out now. But if it's failing, we need to cut our losses, because it's called sunk costs because those costs are sunk. They're at the bottom of the ocean. There's no recovering them.
Yeah, we were talking about money on the radio yesterday again, and the some of the calmest and most in the moment times I've felt is when I've had no money in my account whatsoever, because then I've had this sense of, well, they can't take anything else from me now. I'm done. Where you're paying stuff back, and you've got mates who need stuff and whatever. Eventually at zero, you're like, well, got to start from the fresh again. And I know that can sound really difficult for some people. I've definitely been in those terrified states, but at the point of zero, you go, right, let's go.
Well,
to some degree.
I've been in the position of losing my business, being out of work, my house being repossessed, at the time when I've been diagnosed with a terminal illness.
Doesn't get much more cumulative
with
than
24 hours to go from our house being repossessed, we still had nowhere to live.
Wow.
But we found somewhere. It wasn't very nice, and we lived there for a couple of years and then moved somewhere a bit better. But it was a long climb back, and it was very hard for a time, but there was still value in my life. I had my wife and my dog, a different dog then, and so I had everything I need.
Yeah.
And you know, fought through the illness, lots of nasty treatment, defeated that. Life goes on, and while you're still breathing, you're still hoping.
Mm.
Do you know?
Yeah.
So
When you're still breathing, you're still hoping.
yeah. And valuing what there is that you have.
That's powerful, isn't it?
It is. It is, because that life is taken away from people all the time, and it will be taken from each one of us at some point. So every moment we have is precious.
Do you often get clients to write that down? So
Some write it down, some not. I don't
just note
I
it.
don't state that for them,
Yeah,
but it's something we revisit on a regular basis. And again, it's that thing about the choice that you make, about however tough things are feeling. What choices are you going to make about what you're going to do next?
Mm.
And part of that is how you're going to think about it, which will change how you feel about it.
Mm.
I'm quite keen on quoting "If" from Kipling. There's a few lines from "If," which are what: if you could make a heap of all your winnings and risk them on one turn of pitch and toss, and lose and start again at your beginnings and never breathe a word about your loss. That's quite powerful stuff, I think.
Yeah.
And it's about, like, man up. This sounds like the pull yourself together school of therapy, because in a way it is.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of the work with clients is about getting them to realise that resilience is a choice.
Yeah. Do you feel we've somewhat lost that in society because we've had to soften it and fluff it in a way?
In some way. I mean, the right focus that there is on mental health these days, and I absolutely agree with that. But in some ways, it's about accepting that people can't change how they feel.
Yeah, so I mean, the man up phrase would be seen as like toxic masculinity.
Yeah.
And just get over it. Too flippant and not being treated with respect. But there is a beauty in that. No, come on, get through this.
Yeah.
You can push.
That's right.
Maybe just a better phrase needs to be reinvented.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
But it's just like, I think that being a man in the modern world is about not being a man in terms of being violent and aggressive and distant, but being available, but not looking for other people to supply our emotional needs, but be able to supply them for ourselves.
Yeah.
Not looking for other people to fix you, but to fix yourself.
Mm.
And, I'm an ex-Christian, but I still love that sort of model of Christ-like love, which is don't ask, forgive regardless.
Yeah.
And give everything, give your life, give everything. So it's that sacrifice and love are a good model for being a man.
The Bible's got some decent stuff in it.
Yeah. Amazingly, many people that have read it don't seem to pick up on those messages of love.
They misinterpret
they
a lot of
turn
it.
into something else. Yeah.
And contradict themselves a lot of the time.
So with our children, yes, it's right to try and stop bullying, but at the same time, protecting children from all difficulty.
Yeah.
How are they ever going to build any resilience? Because I think one view of maturity, and I'm taking this beyond childhood, right up to the end of life, in some ways is about learning to build more resilience. Because every hard thing that happens to you in life, then you learn at least that you get through it. That if you survive it, then okay, maybe I'll survive the next tough thing that happens to me.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's that, as I said before, there's maybe no way out, but there's a way through.
It's like a computer game, isn't it? Where you're going through different stages and you keep on learning stuff throughout, and it's going to face you for this next challenge down here.
Yeah.
That's a good way of looking through it. Yeah. What have I equipped myself with in this moment that the next time I can deploy?
Yeah. And it's that, what is keeping me in that moment? If I'm feeling tough, if I'm finding life really tough at the moment, but can I separate out the tough situation that I'm in from how I'm feeling about it? And can I focus more on those moments with the dog and daughter and in nature? Then okay, I'm maybe not going on holiday at the moment, but there aren't bombs falling from the sky.
Yeah.
There aren't plagues of locusts in my fields. Locust.
Your turn.
Plagues of sports cars running over your crops. Not quite an issue.
I wish there were.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think there's some stuff in that, with the money situation. It's because it wasn't just my money as well. It was me speaking with Chrissy and getting her to put money into it too.
Yeah.
On something we believe. So there's a bit of guilt and shame attached in there.
Yeah.
But from what you're saying it is what it is. That's the situation. What's next?
Yeah.
You can sit in that all day long, can't you? You can sit and decide to wallow and be in misery.
Yeah.
And I wish we hadn't. But you're going to tire yourself, aren't you, eventually?
Yeah. And we can have that sense as, we're supposed to be in an equal society these days, but we grew up in a culture where men should be the providers.
Yeah.
And there can be a sense of failure.
Yeah.
If you let that down, well, tough. You failed. Don't
take
fail
it.
next
Take it
time.
to the next one. Yeah, take it to the next.
And okay, if you've let your wife down, well, whatever situation you're in now, you face it together. Be a team together.
Yeah.
And don't hide from her, because you're hiding from yourself in a way.
Yeah.
And when we lost our home, that was a result of the choices that I'd made. Sue never gave me any blame for that, because we dealt with it together.
Well, when you're dealing with somebody like me, somebody in a situation, and you can see it from afar that they're struggling and going through something. Does it have to be a bit of a symbiotic relationship where they're ready to have some of these conversations and talk it through? Could you ever see somebody from afar, know they're struggling, and do you want help? Would you be able to help somebody without them wanting to go through it? Does that make sense?
At the very, if you're talking about friends rather than a professional relationship, the very least that you can do is be there.
Yeah.
And that may not actually be being present with them, but if you can impart the knowledge that you are there for them. And it is literally that. It sounds such a cliche, but when we're really going through it, it can feel such a lonely place.
Yeah.
Because that is something that we suffer alone ultimately. But friends help.
Yeah.
And if we seek out the company of friends, and then it helps a bit.
Yeah.
And it passes over time. You feel better. But I do think we can make positive choices I'm going to try and let that go now.
Yeah.
And I'm going to try and think positively. And I'm going to use a bit of self-talk about, hey, these fuckers aren't going to win.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm going to pull myself up.
It's a good energy to be able to have within it.
Yeah.
Can't all be that voice.
Yeah.
Because then you just go into full fight mode, don't you?
Yeah. But you can use that fight positively.
Yeah.
Which gets you back in the fight.
I want to fight,
swinging madly,
but for a purpose and with direction.
Yeah.
And know what you're fighting for.
Yeah. Okay, I don't know how that's felt for you there, Mikey.
I enjoyed it. I did, yeah. I think the beauty of just being able to share a space with somebody and feel very confused and clunky and not sure where you're positioning yourself, but just having a soundboard and just having somebody to offer ideas forward it's a beautiful space. So I very much appreciate that.
Well, thank you for your vulnerability today, Mikey. I really appreciate that. Being able to share with us and with our viewers and listeners. And hopefully, for some of you out there, there's been a bit of help there, just to maybe give you some things to think about if life's feeling tough at the moment. Until next time, goodbye.
Peace.